So when I say arrange days out, school days out, stuff like that, when they need parents to volunteer and help, I used to be there all the time. Yeah, helping the kids, going, walks and make sure they cross the road safely and that type of thing. We even went to my arrangement. I even went to questions time with David Dimbleby, me, myself, the head teacher, Miss Lindsay Lampard, or her friend, Anne Coroner. Yeah, and that was arranged by myself. So I had a healthy relationship with the school, so to speak, yeah. And since obviously with the breakup of the relationship between myself and my ex-wife, it was like, because my son was having, my son, especially my oldest son, was having a lot of difficulties in school in regards to bullying, and the school hadn't been dealing with it appropriately. It was easy for them to turn it against me and say that the reason why, it was all like based upon my relationships with other parents, etc. When in reality, it was bullying from other kids, the school not dealing with it appropriately. When I say bullying, it was to the point where some of the other kids were telling my kids, both my sons, that they're the colour of poo and stuff like that. So yeah, racially orientated as well, and none of it was wasn't dealt with appropriately. Wasn't being dealt with appropriately. So it was in her interest, to help, because when you do when they had the Ofsted report, bullying becomes part of it. It's part of the agenda, so part of what they assess, so to speak. So it was easy to manoeuvre one of the problems for the statistics to get the Ofsted report back up again. It was easy to, in her interest, to make sure that, and to remove one of the problems, was to put the blame on me and help the mother. And in fact, it was it was them not doing their job appropriately, because when you put your children in school, the school has what's called they become the parent. They have more authority over their children than we do, because they get while the children are in school, they have what's called local parentis right, local parentis, which basically means that the school become the mum and dad of the parents of the kids while they're in school. So therefore, they are, if you like, for the welfare of the children, so to speak, in total. So yeah, in reality, the whole thing was just a complete setup. I wrote an email, which I've highlighted in the page, on the page Father's Day 2021, which is the full story at fatherlessbritain.uk. And I've highlighted and shown some of this, do you know what I mean? And when you're talking about domestic abuse, etc., domestic abuse was, which I've got a recording, a full conversation of it, between myself and my ex-wife. And the domestic abuse was all on the part of my ex-wife. And when I showed this in the court, judge just wasn't interested in looking at seeing the evidence, such as a picture of the x-ray where my wife dislocated my finger. Reports weren't made appropriately when I'm complaining to or saying to doctors when they x-rayed me, saying, when I ask, how did you do your finger? My wife done it, do you know what I mean? And it's not reported, it's not being reported, so therefore you don't get legal aid, and they manage to turn everything around against the one, so it's like they've gone out of the way to deliberately, should we say, not only assassinate my character, but to change it in such a way that it reads to their fitting, to create a narrative of domestic abuse being one-sided from the men towards the woman, so to speak. When in fact, domestic abuse doesn't have to be just literally based around physical. It can be in many different aspects of domestic abuse. Now, I'm not saying that domestic abuse towards women, in fact, what I'm in effect, the domestic abuse it's made worse via the way the system, the social services, the family courts, etc., they make the situation of domestic abuse worse. And instead of helping to keep families together, they go out of the way. It would seem that they go out of the way, definitely by my experience, to not keep the families together, but to break up the family by removing the father out of the equation. Therefore, you end up with a society whereby we have lots of single mums, single parents, and children growing up without a father, without a male role model, a male figure as a role model. So, and anyone with any common decency, anyone with common sense, knows that will have the understanding that for every little girl, the first man that she's supposed to fall in love with, and I know this because I've watched this from I saw the witnesses of my own father and my sister. Yeah, every little girl, the first man that she's supposed to fall in love with is her father. The father sets the precedence to what to for the father sets the precedence to for her to what to come to expect in a potential suit, and for every little boy, his first superhero should be his dad. Because his dad, he teaches him how to be a man. He shows him how to treat a woman, how to respect a woman, and all of these things. But if you keep removing the fathers out of the equation, then you end up with a society whereby the kids are fighting each other, stabbing each other. And I know that's been going on for a long time, but it's just being made worse and escalated, etc. Yeah? And you can see this, it's one-sided. So a lot of the figures that are being produced showing domestic abuse, etc., towards women, it's, I'm not saying that it doesn't happen, I know it happens, I've witnessed it, but it's being made worse and amplified via the state, so to speak, and they're propagating misinformation. Therefore, by propagating misinformation, you're propagating false statistics, So yeah, I've done everything I can that's using the system to put this right. But the judge and all of the different agencies, they've gone out of their way to write things using lies, in order to make it as difficult as possible. So therefore, that's hence the reason why I've not seen my sons for like coming up 5 years next month, So, I even wrote to, coming to the understanding what they've been doing is illegal. It's illegal, and they're not supposed to do this. This is, them committing state, because of who they represent. This has been the frauds that they've been doing. Because when I say fraud, by telling lies, or illegally abusing an individual, so to speak, it allows individuals to write to what they want to write and make their recommendations to where the children will live, who the children will live with, what contact, if any, which is exactly what the Cafcass officer said. What does contact look like? Should you ever see your children again? How can you be so barbaric? What a barbaric thing to say. It's right on top of Christmas, So it's on that note, I wrote to Ian Duncan Smith. Didn't want to know. When I say didn't want to know in the beginning. Wasn't interested. So I spoke to him face to face at one meeting with. He had a meeting where they was on the campaign with Sean Bailey. When Sean Bailey was on campaign for Mayor of London. So I spoke to him and I addressed it in the meeting. I also addressed it to Mr. Smith, in Duncan Smith, privately, and I've put it in writing as well, via an email. He forwarded my email to Dominic Raab. Dominic Raab, the Deputy PM, Prime Minister, wrote back and pretty much told me to well, he says, you know, go to the Citizens Advice Bureau. You know, there is another body that he talks about within the letter, but basically, you're going to come away. There's no point in doing that because I'm going via the same system that has been going out of the way to be legally abuse me. So therefore, by me asking for protection of the Crown, yeah, and him not telling me to go to the Citizens Advice Bureau, he's just, you know, he's just sending me back to the beginning again. You know, when the Citizens Advice Bureau, when it comes to the family matters, you only get 3 1-hour appointments. So it's impossible for me to go back to the Citizens Advice Bureau. Yeah. So it's on that note. I appeal to the top. I'm going to the top. I'm asking the top. Obviously, when I say go to the top, Your Majesty, these people, these individuals, have gone out of their way to commit state frauds to the point that I've got nowhere else to go. Literally nowhere else to go. So I'm left to create, make videos, write my experience, and just get on with it. Suck it up, man up, basically. So what about my mental health? What about mental health for my boys? Yeah. Yeah. What about mental health for my boys?